My name is Vanessa Caldwell. I am 38 years old, and on Mother's Day, my mother told me she wished I had never been her daughter. She said it across her dining table, while my husband, my younger sister, and my 2 children sat close enough to hear every word. Nobody spoke. My 11-year-old daughter lowered her fork. My husband, Mark, looked at me and waited. He knew better than to answer for me. I had spent years making excuses for my mother. That afternoon, I finally stopped. I stood up, took my purse from the back of the chair, and told my children we were leaving. Mom gave a small laugh. "There you go again, Vanessa. Running away the second someone tells you the truth." I almost kept walking. Then I noticed my sister, Emily. She was staring at a large cream envelope beside Mom's plate. A second earlier, I had barely noticed it. Now Mom quickly placed her hand over it. My name was written across the front. Vanessa Caldwell. I stopped. "Why is my name on that envelope?" Mom pulled it toward herself. "It is none of your business." That made no sense. If my name was on it, how could it possibly be none of my business? Emily looked terrified. Not embarrassed, not uncomfortable, terrified. Mom told me to leave again, louder this time. Mark stepped closer to the children, and I knew this was not the place to force an answer. Whatever was happening, I was not going to make my kids sit through another minute of it. So we left. Emily followed us outside. I had just opened the passenger door when she called my name. I turned around and saw her standing on the porch with her arms folded tightly across her chest. She glanced back through the window before coming down the steps. "Don't answer Mom's calls tonight." I asked why. Emily hesitated. "And if she brings you anything to sign, don't sign it." My stomach tightened. What would she bring me? Emily looked toward the house again. Before I tell you what happened next, if you're enjoying this story so far, please take a second to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It truly helps this channel reach more people who love emotional family stories like these. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in her place? I'm curious to read your thoughts. I waited until Emily looked back at me. "What is in that envelope?" Her face changed. She seemed to make a decision right there in my mother's driveway. "Dad left instructions before he died," she said. "Mom found them 3 weeks ago. My father had been dead for almost 2 years. I asked what kind of instructions. Emily stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Something Dad owned was supposed to go to you." I stared at her. "What did he own?" She shook her head. "I don't know everything. Mom won't tell me. But I heard her talking to a lawyer on Friday. She kept saying that you didn't know, and if you signed the papers, you never would." For a moment, all I could hear was my children talking quietly inside the car. Then the front door opened behind Emily. Mom stood there holding the cream envelope. Her expression was completely calm now. "Vanessa," she said, "I think we should talk." And that was when I understood something. My mother had not invited me to Mother's Day because she wanted her family together. She had invited me because she needed something from me. For most of my life, my mother had a simple rule. Emily was allowed to need things. I was expected to provide them. If my younger sister needed money, a favor, or someone to solve a problem, Mom usually called me. I told myself it was because I was dependable. Dad was the only person who ever questioned that. Years earlier, after I had spent an entire weekend helping Mom prepare for a family gathering, Dad found me alone in the kitchen. "You know you don't have to earn your place in this family, Vanessa." I laughed it off. "He didn't. I'm serious. I thought about those words after Emily warned me about the envelope. Dad had been dead for almost 2 years. I knew he had owned part of a commercial building with a longtime business partner, but Mom had told us his estate was simple. She received the house and most of their savings. Emily and I each received a modest investment account. I never questioned it. The morning after Mother's Day, Mom called me 6 times. I ignored every call. Then she sent a message saying she wanted to apologize and asked me to come over alone. Instead, I called my father's attorney. Arthur Bell remembered me immediately. "Vanessa?" "Yes. I've been expecting your call." That stopped me. "Why? Did your mother give you the letter?" "What letter?" Arthur went quiet for a moment. Then he asked if I could come to his office that afternoon. Before hanging up, he asked one more question. "Has anyone given you documents to sign?" "Not yet. Don't sign anything." At 2 that afternoon, I sat across from him with a thin file between us. Arthur did not waste time. Your father changed part of his estate plan about 8 months before he died. Mom told me everything had already been settled. Most of it was. Most? Arthur opened the file. Your father owned 40% of a commercial property through a separate company. That interest did not pass to your mother. I already knew the answer before I asked. Who did he leave it to? You. I stared at him. Dad had arranged for the property interest to remain under professional management until several existing business obligations were completed. Only then was ownership supposed to transfer fully to me. That had happened 3 weeks earlier. The same week Mom had received the envelope. Why didn't anyone contact me? We did. Arthur showed me 2 notices. They had been sent to my parents' address because an old company record had never been updated. The first notice had been delivered. Mom had received it. The second had been returned. I looked at Arthur. How much is the property worth? There is currently an offer to purchase the entire building. He gave me an estimate. Dad's share was worth a little over $900,000. For a moment, I thought I had heard him wrong. $900,000 approximately. My first reaction was not excitement. It was confusion. Why me? Arthur reached for another sheet of paper. Your father explained that. He handed me a copy of a letter Dad had written before he died. I read it slowly. Dad wrote that he loved both his daughters, but he had watched me become the person everyone depended on. He was proud of me for it, but he was also worried. Then I reached one sentence that made me stop. He believed my family had started confusing my reliability with obligation. I had to put the page down. Dad had noticed. All those years when I thought I was being too sensitive, he had noticed. The property, he explained, was meant to give me something that belonged only to me. Something nobody could pressure me into giving away. Then I reached the final paragraph. Dad wrote that Mom strongly disagreed with his decision. I looked up. She knew? Arthur nodded. Your father discussed it with her before he died. That was worse than anything I had expected. Mom had not discovered my inheritance 3 weeks ago. She had known about it for almost 2 years. My phone vibrated. Emily, I answered. Where are you? Dad's attorney's office. She went quiet. Then she said something that confirmed she knew more than she had admitted. So you found out. I walked toward the window. Found out what, Emily? About the building. My grip tightened around the phone. How long have you known? Not long. Mom told me there was a problem with Dad's business property. She said the paperwork had to be fixed before it could be sold. What paperwork? Emily hesitated. She had signed something the previous week. Mom had told her it was routine. Afterward, Emily became suspicious. She searched Mom's desk and found the envelope with my name on it. That was why she had warned me. Then she admitted something else. Mom had promised her money when the building sold. How much? $150,000. I repeated the amount aloud. Arthur immediately looked up. Emily started crying. I didn't know it was yours, Vanessa. Not at first. Not at first. She went silent. That answer hurt more than I expected. At some point, Emily had realized Mom was hiding something from me, and she had stayed quiet because there was money waiting for her. I asked her one question. If I hadn't seen that envelope yesterday, would you have told me? She couldn't answer. I told her not to sign anything else and ended the call. Mom had spent years telling me family helped family. Now she was trying to use that same family to take something Dad had deliberately protected for me. Arthur pulled another document from the file. Before you speak to your mother, there's something else you need to know. I looked at him. Your father expected she might try to interfere with this transfer. He placed the document in front of me, and he left specific instructions for exactly what should happen if she did. Arthur's instructions were simple. Do not confront Mom yet. Let her bring the documents. Let her explain what she wanted me to sign. Then we would know exactly what she was trying to do. So when Mom called that evening, I answered. Her voice was gentle again. Vanessa, yesterday was awful. I shouldn't have said what I said. I waited. She did not actually say she was sorry. Instead, she told me there were old documents connected to Dad's property that needed my signature. What kind of documents? Routine estate paperwork. I almost smiled. Can you bring them tomorrow? She arrived the next afternoon carrying the same cream envelope from Mother's Day. We sat at my kitchen table. Mom removed several pages and pushed one toward me. Sign at the bottom. Then we can finally put all this behind us. I started reading. Her fingers tapped against the table. Vanessa, you don't need to read every word. I looked up. Why not? Because it's standard legal language. It wasn't. The document did not simply approve the sale of Dad's property. It transferred my ownership interest into a family trust. And Mom would control that trust. I looked at her. Why am I transferring my share to you? You're not transferring it to me. You're putting it somewhere it can be managed properly. Managed by you. For the family. There was that phrase. For the family. I asked whether Emily would receive money after the building sold. Mom's face changed. Who told you that? How much were you planning to give her? She pushed back from the table. Emily needs help. $150,000. Mom went completely still. Now she knew Emily had talked. I kept reading. The trust gave Mom broad authority over the sale proceeds. She could distribute money for family expenses, investments, and other purposes. Dad had left the property to me. Mom was asking me to give control of it back to her. Why didn't you tell me Dad left this to me? She folded her arms. Because I knew exactly what would happen. What would happen? This. She pointed at the papers between us. You would suddenly decide it was yours and nobody else mattered. I stared at her. It is mine. Her jaw tightened. Legally, maybe. That answer told me everything. To Mom, ownership did not matter if she believed someone else deserved what I had. She started talking about Emily. Her rent had increased. Her job was unstable. She had credit card debt. Mom said $150,000 could give her a fresh start. I listened. Then I asked one question. Why does Emily's fresh start have to come from Dad's gift to me? Mom looked genuinely offended. Because you don't need that much money, I almost answered immediately. Then I stopped. That was the trap I had lived inside for years. If I was doing well, I was expected to give. If Emily was struggling, she was entitled to receive. My stability had become evidence that I deserved less. I slid the papers back toward Mom. I'm not signing. Her expression hardened. Don't be selfish. I'm not taking anything from Emily. You are choosing money over your sister. No. I'm choosing not to give away something Dad deliberately left to me. Mom stood. Your father was sick when he made that decision. I already knew the dates. He changed the plan 8 months before he died, while he was still working and managing his own finances. Mom's face went pale. You talked to Arthur? Yes. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question I had been waiting to ask. Why did Dad leave instructions specifically preventing anyone in the family from controlling my share? Mom looked toward the window. Ask your perfect father. I already did, in a way. I told her about Dad's letter. I told her I knew he believed the family had begun treating my reliability like an obligation. Mom gave a bitter laugh. Of course he wrote that. Why? Because he always made me the villain when it came to you. I shook my head. This isn't about who was the villain. Then what is it about? You knew for almost 2 years. She stopped moving. You knew Dad left that property to me, and you said nothing. Mom picked up the papers. I did what I thought was best for this family. No. You decided what to do with something that wasn't yours. She walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned around. If you refuse to sign, Emily will know exactly who took away her chance to get out of debt. That was the moment something inside me changed. Not because Mom threatened me, because I finally understood the threat. She planned to make Emily blame me. She had already promised my sister money from an inheritance I did not even know existed. If I refused, Mom could tell everyone that I had taken it away. I called Emily as soon as the door closed. Did Mom tell you the $150,000 was guaranteed? Emily hesitated. Yes. When? About 4 months ago. I froze. 4 months. Mom had received the official notice only 3 weeks earlier. That meant she had been planning this long before the envelope arrived. How did she know the building was going to sell? Emily went quiet. Then she admitted Mom had been talking about the property for months. She had even told Emily not to mention it around me. I called Arthur. He checked the timeline while I waited. Then he found something. 4 months earlier, the other owners had sent an informal notice saying they were considering a sale. Mom had received a copy because she was still listed as Dad's surviving spouse in some of the company's records. She knew a sale might be coming. And before I had been formally notified of my ownership, she had already promised part of my money to Emily. But Arthur found something worse. Someone had contacted the property manager shortly after that notice. The caller claimed to be speaking for the Caldwell family and asked whether my ownership interest could be transferred before a future sale. Who called? Arthur already knew. My mother. She had been told she had no authority to make the transfer without me. That was why she needed my signature. Now the whole plan was clear. Mom had not lost her temper on Mother's Day because of some old resentment. She had invited me there to get those papers signed. When I noticed the envelope, the plan started falling apart. I called Emily back and told her everything. She cried quietly. Then she said something I did not expect. I need to show you what I signed. You said you didn't have a copy. I don't. But I remember more than I told you. My stomach tightened. What do you remember? Mom hadn't told Emily the document was routine estate paperwork. She had told her it was an agreement confirming how the sale money would be divided after I transferred my share into the trust. Emily had known she was being promised part of my inheritance. She just had not known Dad had deliberately left it only to me. Why didn't you tell me that yesterday? Because I was ashamed. I closed my eyes. Emily continued. Mom told me you had already agreed. I opened my eyes again. What? She said you knew about the property. She said you were fine with putting it into the trust, because Dad would have wanted us both taken care of. For months, Mom had been telling Emily that I had agreed to share money I did not even know existed. She had lied to both of us. And suddenly, I knew what I needed to do. I wasn't going to fight Mom through phone calls. I wasn't going to let her tell Emily one version and me another. I asked Emily to come to Arthur's office the next morning. Then I called Mom. I told her I had reconsidered. Her voice brightened immediately. You're going to sign? I looked at Dad's letter on my kitchen table. I told her I was willing to discuss it. But only if all three of us sat down together. Mom was silent. Then she asked the question that confirmed she was afraid of exactly that. Why does Emily need to be there? Mom agreed to the meeting, but only after asking me 3 times why Emily needed to be there. The next morning, Emily and I met at Arthur's office. Mom arrived 5 minutes later with the cream envelope tucked under her arm. She smiled when she saw me. I'm glad you've decided to be reasonable. Then she noticed Arthur. Why is he here? Because I'm not signing anything without my attorney reviewing it. Mom's smile disappeared. You said this was a family discussion. It is. This time, everyone is going to hear the same version. Emily looked down at the table. Mom sat across from us. Arthur placed the trust document in front of her and asked her to explain what it did. Mom sighed. It allows the property to be sold and the money to help the family. Who controls the trust? Arthur asked. I do. And who decides where the money goes? Mom hesitated. I do. I turned to Emily. Tell her what she told you. Mom's eyes narrowed. Emily swallowed. You told me Vanessa already agreed to share the money. I said she would agree. No. You said she already had. Mom shook her head. You're remembering it wrong. Emily's voice became firmer. You also told me not to mention the property around her. Mom looked at me. This is exactly what I wanted to avoid. 2 sisters fighting over money. We're not fighting. I pushed the document toward her. We're comparing what you told us. Arthur explained that I would not transfer my ownership into the trust. Mom stared at me. You said you reconsidered. I said I would discuss it. Her face hardened. So this was a trap? No. This was the first conversation where you couldn't tell each of us a different story. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then I asked Mom why she had promised Emily $150,000 before I even knew the property belonged to me. Mom turned toward my sister. You told her that too? Emily nodded. I'm done hiding things from her. Mom gave a bitter laugh. After everything I've done for you? Emily flinched. I recognized the reaction because I had spent years doing the same thing. One sentence from Mom, and suddenly you were defending yourself instead of questioning her. I stepped in. This isn't about what Emily owes you. Mom looked at me. Of course you'd defend her now. You've resented her your whole life. That hurt because part of it was true. I had resented Emily, but I finally understood that Mom had taught both of us our roles. Emily needed. I provided. Emily received. I was supposed to understand. I looked at my sister. I have been angry with you. Sometimes I still am. Emily nodded. But Mom lied to both of us. Then I faced my mother. Why did you hide Dad's decision from me? Mom folded her arms. Because Emily needed help more than you did. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Her voice rose. You were always fine. The room went quiet. 4 words. That was how Mom justified almost everything. I had a steady job, so I could lend money. I had a reliable car, so I could drive everyone. I had a stable marriage, so my problems were never urgent. I handled things well, so nobody asked what handling them cost me. Dad had noticed. Mom had mistaken it for proof that I needed less. I looked at her. Being capable doesn't mean I don't need a mother. Something shifted in her expression. Then she looked away. Your father always admired that about you. What? How you handled everything. How independent you were? He would compare us without even realizing it. I stared at her. I never asked him to do that. I know. For the first time, she sounded tired rather than angry. She rubbed her hands together. Every time he praised you for being calm or responsible, I heard what he wasn't saying about me. There it was, something deeper than the inheritance. Mom had not only spent years believing Emily needed more from her, part of her had resented me for becoming the kind of woman Dad respected. Understanding that did not excuse what she had done, but it finally made her behavior make sense. I asked her one question. If I had signed those papers, would you ever have told me Dad left the property to me? Mom looked at the table. She did not answer. She didn't need to. Arthur closed the trust document. Vanessa's ownership will now be registered directly in her name. Any future offer for the property will go through her and her legal counsel. Mom looked at him. And Emily? Arthur remained calm. Vanessa has no legal obligation to give any portion of her inheritance to anyone. Mom turned toward me. So you're keeping everything. I'm keeping what Dad left me. Your sister has debt. Then Emily and I can discuss that separately if she wants my help. Mom shook her head. You really have changed. No. I looked at the cream envelope sitting between us. I just stopped letting you decide what being a good daughter costs me. Mom's eyes filled. The old instinct came back immediately. Comfort her. End the argument. Make everyone feel better. I let the feeling pass. Then Emily spoke. Mom, I don't want Vanessa's money. Mom looked at her. Don't be ridiculous. I'm serious. Emily's voice shook, but she continued. You told me Vanessa had agreed. You made me think this was something we had decided together. I was trying to help you. By lying to both of us? Mom had no answer. Emily wiped her eyes. I signed because I wanted the money. I'm not pretending I didn't. But if Dad left it to Vanessa, then it's hers. That mattered to me. Not because Emily had suddenly become perfect. Because for the first time, she was taking responsibility without asking me to make the consequences easier. Mom stood. I suppose you're both against me now. Emily shook her head. This isn't about choosing sides. Mom picked up her purse. I thought the meeting was over. Then she reached for the cream envelope and stopped. Her hand remained there for several seconds. There's something else. Arthur looked at her. Mom reached inside and removed one folded page. The paper was old enough that the creases had begun to soften. I recognized Dad's handwriting immediately. My chest tightened. What is that? Mom did not look at me. Your father gave it to me shortly before he died. Arthur frowned. I've never seen that letter. You weren't supposed to. Mom finally looked at me. He told me to give it to you if there ever came a day when you discovered what I had done. I stared at her. Dad knew. Mom's eyes filled again. Not exactly. But he knew me well enough to be afraid. She placed the letter in front of me. Why didn't you give it to me when he died? Because I read it first. Her answer came quietly. And? Mom looked toward the door. Because after I read what your father wrote to you, I knew that if you ever saw it, I might never be able to control what happened between us again. I unfolded the page. Dad had written only a few paragraphs. Then I reached one sentence and stopped. He had not told me to hate my mother. He had not told me to choose money over family. He had written something much simpler. Keeping peace is not the same as keeping a family together. I read it again. Then I looked at Mom. For the first time in my life, I understood exactly what Dad had been trying to protect. It wasn't the money. It was my right to say no. I took Dad's letter home with me. For the first time since Mother's Day, I did not feel like I needed another answer. I already had the important one. Dad had seen the pattern long before I was willing to name it. He had not left me the property to punish Mom or Emily. He had left it to me because he knew how easily I gave things away when someone made me feel guilty. And he wanted one thing in my life to come without guilt attached. The property sale moved forward 2 months later. Every document came directly to Arthur and me. I had my own financial advisor review the numbers, and when I finally signed, I knew exactly what every page meant. Mom received nothing from my share, neither did Emily. I did not feel victorious when the money arrived. I felt safe. Mark and I used part of it to pay off our mortgage and strengthen the savings we had already built for our children. The rest was invested carefully. Our life did not suddenly become extravagant. That was never what I wanted. Emily and I had a harder conversation. She apologized for signing Mom's papers and for staying quiet after she realized something was wrong. I told her I appreciated the apology, but I was not going to pay off her debts. She nodded. I understand. Then I offered to help her make a plan, not rescue her. Help her. There was a difference I had never understood before. Emily began working through her debt herself. Slowly, sometimes badly. But she stopped calling Mom every time something went wrong. And I stopped stepping in before she even asked. For a while, Mom blamed me for everything. She told relatives that Dad's inheritance had changed me. In one way, she was right. I had changed. I stopped answering every call the moment my phone rang. I stopped rearranging weekends because Mom suddenly needed something. Most importantly, I stopped giving long explanations for simple decisions. No became a complete answer. Mom hated that at first. She sent messages through Emily. When that stopped working, she called an aunt and complained that I was shutting her out. I did not argue with anyone. If someone sincerely asked what happened, I gave them the short version. Dad left me property. Mom tried to put it under her control. I refused. That was enough. Almost 4 months passed before Mom called me directly. She asked to meet at a coffee shop. When I arrived, she was already sitting near the window. There was no cream envelope. That detail mattered more than I expected. Mom apologized for what she had done, not perfectly. She tried to explain that she had been afraid for Emily and angry about Dad's decision. I listened. Then she said she had only wanted to keep the family together. I thought about Dad's letter. Keeping peace is not the same as keeping a family together. Mom lowered her eyes. I told her I understood why she had been afraid. Then I made something clear. Understanding her did not erase what she had done. If we were going to have a relationship, things had to change. She could not promise my money or my time to someone else. She could not use Emily to pressure me. She could not insult me when I disagreed with her. And what happens if I make a mistake, she asked. You take responsibility for it. She looked at me for a long moment, then she nodded. We did not hug, we simply left. Our relationship did not become perfect after that. I did not expect it to. But something important had changed. Mom was learning that my boundaries were not negotiations, and I was learning that her disappointment was not an emergency. The following Mother's Day, Mark and I took the children to Mom's house for lunch. Emily was already there. It was smaller than the year before. Quieter, too. Nobody was pretending we had forgotten what happened. After lunch, Mom asked me to come into the kitchen. For a moment, I remembered standing in her dining room 1 year earlier, while my children listened to her tell me she wished I had never been her daughter. Mom seemed to remember it, too. I've thought about what I said to you last Mother's Day. I waited. I wish I could take it back. The old version of me would have told her it was fine. It wasn't, so I didn't. You can't take it back. She nodded. I know, but you can choose what you say to me from now on. I can. That was enough. Not forgiveness wrapped in a perfect bow. Not a magical repair. Just accountability. Before we left, Mom brought me a small box. I looked at her. She gave me a faint smile. No paperwork. I opened it. Dad's wristwatch was inside. The leather strap was worn from years of use, and there was a tiny scratch across the face. I remembered that watch from childhood. Dad wore it to work. He wore it at Sunday breakfast. He wore it when he taught me to drive and when he walked me down the aisle. Mom said she had found it in the back of a drawer. Your father would want you to have it. I held it in my palm. Thank you. There were no conditions, no signatures, nothing expected in return. On the drive home, I kept thinking about what Dad had actually left me. For months, everyone had focused on the property, but the money was never the most important inheritance. Dad had left me proof that someone had seen what was happening, and then he had left me permission to stop participating in it. For 38 years, I thought being a good daughter meant being the person who could absorb the most without complaining. I was wrong. I could love my mother without obeying her. I could love my sister without rescuing her. I could forgive someone without handing them the power to hurt me the same way again. And I could say no without explaining why, until everyone else was comfortable with my answer. That Mother's Day, I fastened Dad's old watch around my wrist. For once, I wasn't wondering whether Mom was disappointed in me. I wasn't wondering whether Emily needed something. I wasn't wondering what I could do to keep everyone happy. I was thinking about my own children laughing in the back seat, and about the kind of mother I wanted them to remember. One who loved them without keeping score. One who never made them earn their place. Thank you for staying with me until the end of my story. If it touched your heart, please subscribe, because I share a brand new family story here every single day. And if you're not ready to leave yet, open the next story on your screen. I have a feeling it will stay with you just as long.